Hey, this is Michael Crowd with IDD. We're going to look at installing SQL Server. So as you can see, I have a Windows 2012 R2 server up here in my infrastructure. And so what we're going to do is we're going to go ahead and install SQL Server 2016. Now the thing is the first thing you have to do is you need to make sure that you have .NET 3.5 already installed before you start the installation, because if you don't, then what's going to happen is it's going to error out. So you'll see that I've already installed it, but we'll just take a look real quick. Now the thing is that when you're installing .NET 3.5, you need to make sure that you have an alternate source for the actual install, because it's not part of the binaries that are right there. So you can see that I already have 3.5 already installed. So I did that ahead of time so you didn't have to watch paint dry, because there's enough paint drying during this installation. So I started up the installation. So all I did was just double click on the DVD. As you can see, there's the DVD 2016. Installing Developer Edition. Now you can do Enterprise, the Standard Edition, of course. The reason I do Developer is because it gives me the same functionality as if it were Enterprise. So I'm going to go ahead and click on New SQL Server Standalone Installation. You just have to wait a couple seconds for it to come up and allow us to be able to start the installation. You'll see that it's pretty much point and click, and you just do next, next, next. Just don't get next happy, because you never know when you're going to start that war where it says, do you want to play a game? If you remember from war games. I know it's showing my age, but it's just pretty cool. But anyway, so SQL Server 2016 starting up. And I will pause when there's a lot of delay, so that way you don't have to sit there and watch paint dry. So you can see it's a developer. You can put in a product key also. Click on next. Got your license terms, which giving away your firstborn child. I accept the license terms. Then you got your global rules, so it's checking to make sure that everything's good to go. Now the thing is, it will go out and check your Windows updates. So if you have a WSUS server in the environment, you don't have to worry about this. You can update it later on. You can also update at this point. I'm not going to, because I don't have access to the internet. As you can see, I'm on a private network right now. So you can see you can't search Windows updates. So it's going through and doing an install, setup files. Checking the rules. You can see .NET, application security, and firewall. Don't worry about that. Those are just warnings. There's nothing red at this point. So we can also view a detailed report. We're going to click on next. And I'm going to put in the database. I'm going to put in the SQL Server replication. You have the R services in the database, which is Advanced Analytics Extension, full text and semantic extraction, data quality. We also have Polybase, which enables you to be able to work with Hadoop. Analysis services, and I'm going to put reporting services, because I'm actually doing a class on analysis services and also reporting services, some updates for a company. And so I'm going to do remote report services for SharePoint, and add in for SharePoint products, data quality, client tool connectivity, integration services. Also, I'm going to do backwards compatibility, pretty much everything. And so, except for my distributed replay and controller, the client connectivity, SDK, and master data services. So what we're going to do here is we're going to go ahead, and I always change the location where the programs are going to be installed, and also the data. You never want to put things on C drive, because if you run out of space on C drive, then what will happen is you'll end up having a bunch of errors, and you don't want errors to show up. There's more to it, but anyway, so we're putting on an E drive. Now the thing is that we can move our databases to another drive and so forth later on. But I'm going to put on E drive. You'll see that I actually have 3 drives. I have E drive, my F, and G. So I'm going to separate my database will be here, and my logs will be on G drive later on. A lot of times when you're installing SQL Server, especially 2016 or 2014, there's a lot of waiting that you have to go on, but you can see it's pretty quick. So we have our default instance. Now the default instance, what this means is that it's going to take the name of the actual server and it puts MS SQL Server. Now you can have multiple instances on a SQL Server, and the reason you would do that is if you want to have like a test environment and have multiple instances of different versions. You could have SQL Server 2008 or 2012, 2014, or 2016 or 2008 R2. You can have them all on the same server. And the thing is that you can access them as separate instances. Now, the thing, if you want to do like always on, always availability groups and other things like that, then you need to have on separate servers. And usually what I do is I have all my different instances, even if they're different ones, onto different servers. That just keeps it so that they have their own versions. But you can have multiple instances, and that's what the instance ID is. But when you install for the first time, it's going to be MS SQL Server. I'm going to go ahead and go to the next part. So our instance configuration, what I've done already, I've already created an account. And so that's one of the things that you want to do is you could use a Windows service account, which you're doing through PowerShell. It automatically changes the password every 45 days and also the SPN, service principal name. But what I do is I just create an Active Directory account, least privilege, and it's just for demo purposes and for a lab environment. You want to make it so that it's not affected by the actual password policy that you have in Active Directory, which is going to change. Because what happens is if the service knocks down, then your SQL Server goes down. But what I'm going to do here is I've already created one SQL Server. So I'm just going to browse, and you can see the entire directory. Then we just put in our credentials. I could tell you the password, then I'd have to kill you. Just a little James Bond humor there. And you can see that they're all on automatic, so they're going to start when the machine starts up. Almost finished here. Now what you could do is you could separate the different accounts that are running for all the different services here. I'm just using the same one. Again, this is a test environment. In a real world environment, you probably would have additional accounts for each of the different services. Now you can grant perform volume maintenance tasks privilege to the start, and it's an instant file initialization by avoiding zeroing of data pages. Collation, by default it's SQL Latin, so we really don't change that. And case insensitive. Case insensitive means that it doesn't look if it's uppercase or lowercase. If you work with Oracle, they use all uppercase, and some of the times that makes it very difficult to work with if you're doing a transfer from Oracle to SQL. But so you can see analysis services also Latin general. So I'm just going to leave those the same. Just wanted to show you that. So we got the database engine configuration. So we're going to add the current user. You need to add the current user or you won't be able to get into SQL Server. Later on, you can go ahead and you can create your logins and then associate it with the database roles and our server roles. And server roles allow us to be able to have the privilege of limited access. So Windows Authentication mode, you can also do mixed mode, which you do SQL Server and Windows Authentication. Windows Authentication is going to give you the best security because it's going to use Kerberos, which is Active Directory. And you would use SQL Server Authentication when you're using web servers and other things like that. If you're using like Azure, Azure only allows you to use SQL Server authentication. But in this instance, this is connected to Active Directory. We want to make it so that it has the best security, so we're going to use Windows authentication. Then our data directories, you can see that they're all on E drive. We'll leave them there for right now. TempDB. And so the TempDB, this actually is where all the sorting, indexing, and everything takes place, and you should have it on a very fast drive. So what you can do is a RAID 0, which RAID 0 you can have 2 to 32 disks, but RAID 0 doesn't have any redundancy, but it doesn't matter because every time SQL Server starts up, the TempDB also gets recreated, but you can see the number of files and where it's located also. And then the file stream. This is where you would save like resumes and other things outside of the database, and you get access to it. Like I said, this is just a down and dirty installation, so not going into too much detail right now. But in other classes or other things that we offer with Idea Dudes, with Microsoft certification camps, you can come in and take a full-blown class, and we'll describe the other things. So you have different modes for analysis services. So we can do multi-dimensional and data mining mode. We can also do tabular and also Power Pivot. I'm just going to leave this as the default right now. Just add the users so it'll be able to have access. Then our data directories also for analysis services. Reporting services, we have reporting services in native mode. So what this is going to do is this is going to create a reporting services server on this server. What you can do is you can span it out and put other ones in and other things like that. You can also have it integrated with SharePoint, because remember I showed you the integration part, one of the things that you could install at the same time. So you can see now everything is ready to go, and we're ready to install our SQL Server. So now we just wait. So it's hurry up and wait, and say in the military, hoo-ha! For those who are out there or military, thank you for your service. So what we're going to do is we're going to go ahead and pause the video and bring you back in once the installation started, and we'll show you that SQL Server 2016 has been installed. So we'll see you back in a little bit. Thank you. Okay, the installation is finished, so what we're going to do is restart the machine. Okay, we're just going to close out the screens here, and we're going to reboot the machine. I like to use PowerShell when I'm rebooting. You could do it through the command prompt too. Shut down. -R, -T, and 0. Okay, it's restarting. We're going to go ahead and pause the video. Once it comes back up, then we'll go to the next step. Alright, so we're back in to the SQL Server, and let's go ahead and take a look at a couple things. Let's go in to our C drive real quick, and you'll notice that there should be an installation file. So what we're going to do is we're going to go ahead and look at some of the areas where we can find out if SQL Server has been installed correctly. Go into SQL Server and 130, and then set up Bootstrap, log, and you have a summary file. And what this does is this shows us all the things that in the process, what happened and what are the things installed. This is where we can find any of the errors that may have occurred. Also, what we can do is we can go into our good old event viewer. And into our application log, because it's application on top of Windows Server 2012 R2. And we can see any of the different things that have gone on there too. There's our SQL Server right there. Now we're going to go ahead and go into SQL Server. But first, what we need to do is we need to go ahead and configure connections for our outside. So we're going to go into configuration. And we have our SQL Server configuration here. And our profiles, go ahead and enable name pipes. You can see they're already enabled on the client side. You can see they're also enabled. This is on the network configuration. And so the SQL Server services, you can see all of our different services that are running. They're currently running on the context of the SQL Server account that I created, which is an Active Directory account. I'm going to go ahead and restart SQL Server. And do the same thing with analysis services, because I made changes to the network configuration. Reporting services. Now you'll notice during the installation what I did was go ahead and set the SQL Server agent for automatic start. The reason is that's where all of our jobs, anything that's automated is going to be working within the SQL Server agent. And actually those settings are stored within the MSDB, which in another course or another video we'll talk more about the MSDB and our different databases. And our full filter daemon, also I'm going to restart that, or actually it's manual. So okay, so there we have all our different services and everything. So let's go ahead and go into SQL Server and take a look. And you'll notice that there isn't a management studio. So the way it works with SQL Server 2016 is that you have to install this in addition to your SQL Server. So what we're going to do here is we're going to go ahead and get that SQL Server Management Studio, because it's a very important piece. And so you can see there's a hotfix already update. So the Management Studio allows us to be able to work with SQL Server 2008 and also SQL Server 2016, so all the way up, also Azure databases too. So we'll go ahead and save this. We want to create a downloads folder. I don't like putting things on C drive, so go ahead and put it on here. Unlike in the previous versions, all you had to do is just select the Management Studio and it would be installed. But now what they've done is separated the Management Studio from SQL Server 2016, because really it's not part of SQL Server. What it is this is a tool to allow us to be able to work with our different servers. So we'll go ahead and pause and let this download, and then we'll install it. Okay, the download's finished, so let's go ahead and take a look here. There it is, SMS setup ENU. We can go ahead and close the web page. Go ahead and run it. Go ahead and install. This is the latest from August 2016. Microsoft is really striving to make sure that our software that we get is up to date and it's the latest and greatest, and making it easy for us to be able to update. Okay, this may take a couple minutes, so I'm going to pause the video. We'll bring you back. You'll notice that it's doing Microsoft.NET Framework 4.61. So that's the newest .NET framework. And Windows 2016, it'll be 5.0. So you can see that the installation is finished. So what we have to do is we have to restart. We'll restart the computer and then we'll come and look at it again. Okay, so let's go ahead and log in. We're going to go ahead and open up the SQL Management Studio. And you can see it is here. Like I said, this can connect to any of the SQL servers from 2008 all the way up. Now you can use some of the features, or we can connect to 2000 and 2005, but it has limited capabilities. You can see that it's powered by Visual Studio. This is the first time that it's being connected, so it may take a couple minutes for it to finish configuring itself. So overall, took a couple hours, but I took breaks in between and stuff like that. So it doesn't really take that long to get the SQL Server configured. And so we're doing Windows authentication. Click on Connect. And there you have it. Now you got to understand there are no databases on here except for our master. The master database is our system databases are master, our model, MSDB. MSDB is used with SQL Server agent. The model is what we base our databases on. And the master, of course, is everything SQL Server, all the settings and everything like that. Then we have report server and report server temp DB, and these are for our report server. And so that's it for this video. Future, we'll be going over some more things about loading the sample database and working with some queries. We'll talk about always on and always availability groups, and we'll see all kinds of different things. Well, thanks for tuning in, and tune in for our next video. Thanks a lot. Bye-bye now.